أن لو استقاموا على الطريقة لأسقيناهم ماء غدقا لنفتنهم فيه ومن يعرض عن ذكر ربه يسلكه عذابا صعدا. So this thing about, like, when people turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will cause them to enter a severe torment in hellfire, but there's also remnants of this punishment that you would actually see in this world as well, right? And that's what I was saying, that like even if they get a lot of physical assets, they will not be happy, they will not be content, because it will never be enough. Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. So still on Surah Al-Jinn, chapter number 72, verse number is 16. So Ajmal, I'm going to start.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. If the non-Muslim had believed in Allah and went to the right way, Islam, we should surely have bestowed on them water rain in abundance.
Okay, so what do you learn from this? So first of all, what is it? Who is it talking about?
The believer. The one who believes in Allah.
The disbelievers.
Is
that right?
Yeah.
So disbelievers.
Yeah.
So is there any quality that we are learning that Allah loves?
If somebody believes, Allah will gonna show His mercy.
So the quality is to believe and do the right things. Okay. Yeah. And if they do that, what will Allah do?
Bestow them like with rain, with water, like with provision with food stuff.
Good. So one thing that we learn from this is that your obedience to Allah has impact on your world. Right? Yeah. So we desire provision, we desire good relationships, we desire friends, we desire happiness.
Healthy life.
Yes. So if you want that, then our worship also has an impact on that. Right? So sometimes we think, I'm too busy because I'm chasing these things. Yeah. But if you were to go and seek it from Allah, it would have actually blessed and impacted that as well. Yeah. Okay, next. Yeah, go ahead.
Should I read?
Yes. Yeah.
That we might try them thereby, and whoever turns away from the reminder of his Lord, the Qur'an and the practice and the Qur'an, He will cause him to enter in severe torment, hell.
Okay, so what's the promise here? Is there a promise here?
Yeah.
What is it?
So Allah says, for those who turn away from my remembrance, in hereafter Allah will punish them in
severe torment.
Yeah, in severe torment, such as hell.
Okay.
So the question I would have is that in the verse earlier, where Allah is saying that if the non-Muslims or non-believers had believed in Allah and went to the right way, which is Islam, we should surely have bestowed on them water, rain in abundance, right? So is Allah trying to say that if you are to remember me or to worship me in the right way, I will give you what you desire?
Yeah, so obviously, so if Allah does not give someone a lot of abundance in this world, right? So that does not necessarily mean that Allah does not like that person. Because somebody could be poor, right? But be really, really beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And somebody could be very, very rich, but not beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So actually, in the words that you read, 17, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, so that we may test them. لِنَفْتِنَهُمْ فِيهِ, right? And that's very important, because Allah tests by giving you abundance and also by restricting your provisions. So both are a test. For many people, abundance actually is a harder test, because in general, if Allah opens the doors of abundance, in general, most people cannot be patient with that, right? People are patient with that when they don't have a lot. But as they start getting more and more, in general, they're not patient, and then they start engaging in extravagance and forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on and so forth, right? So everything is a test, but in general, overall, the abundance will come with the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala overall, right? So sometimes Allah may withhold the rain because of disobedience that are happening, right? Or you may see different sort of disasters like earthquakes and what we were talking about last time, right?
Yeah. And what about there are some who don't disbelieve in Allah, but yet they have everything that they would desire. They're desiring, like they got the money, the fame, and so forth. So like, what would you say about those people? Because Allah says, if you don't remember me, then Allah will not bless you with the stuff that you desire.
Right. So my point is, look, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it, right? First of all, wealth and provision is not a sign that Allah loves you or not. That's clear, right? Because you had companions, right, which were the best of generations. Some were wealthy and some were poor, right? So in general, if somebody wants to acquire wealth and provisions, and he or she will not be attached to those things, and it will not basically deter them from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's fine. You should seek that. You can seek it while you're not disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But to really attach it and then say that, look, so if you want to achieve wealth and provisions or happiness, right, there are means to do that. There are physical means and there are metaphysical means, right? So metaphysical means are you worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You're being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're remembering Him. These are metaphysical means, right? And the physical means are like, being hardworking, planning, being smart about your, doing your budgeting and stuff like that. So these are physical needs, right? So usually if you do that, you will get it. But sometimes if you do everything, but you still don't get it, does that mean that Allah doesn't like you? Right? Because sometimes Allah may know that if I were to give this guy this much more than this much wealth, it would actually become a trial for him.
So in the same Allah is justice, right? And if somebody's granted with wealth, and the other guy is in the same time he has lots of other negative, right?
Exactly. So you don't know, right? Allah knows you don't know, right? But the point is that when you, but the beauty is that when you truly understand who Allah is and you have a good relationship with Him, you will achieve contentment and satisfaction, right? So a good state to be in is that, a person can appreciate the wealth, right? That, okay, it's there, it's, I can use it, but it's not a slave of wealth. Because at the end of the day, most people acquire wealth to be able to do certain things, to be able to purchase certain things, right? And sometimes people acquire wealth just for certainty that I have wealth. You're not even using it, it's just parked in the bank, for example. Right? So you don't use it. So a lot of time people will be growing it, and it just acts as a certainty that I have it. Right? So if it's just about a certainty, which is an emotional feeling or a mental state, then you can have it if you have certainty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see what I'm saying? So the feeling can be achieved without the physical existence of something. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's a very powerful thing to realize. That look, I don't necessarily need to own something to be certain.
Yeah.
And sometimes people do own a lot of physical assets, but they're still not certain. So that's something to remember. So let me recite these two verses. And then, okay. وَأَن لَوْ اسْتَقَامُوا عَلَى الطَّرِيقَةِ لَأَسْقَيْنَاهُم مَّاءً غَدَقًا لِنَفْتِنَهُمْ فِيهِ وَمَن يُعْرِضْ عَن ذِكْرِ رَبِّهِ يَسْلُكْهُ عَذَابًا صَعَدًا. So this thing about, when people turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will cause them to enter a severe torment in hellfire. But there's also remnants of this punishment that you would actually see in this world as well. Right? And that's what I was saying, that even if they get a lot of physical assets, they will not be happy. They will not be content. Because it will never be enough. You understand? So for example, if I ask you, hey, what money, if it's in your bank, you will be happy. Right? So somebody may say, if I have $10,000, I know that will suffice me for 3 months or expenses or 5 months of expenses. I'm happy that I have this much cushion.
Yeah.
But there are many people who have $1 million and they're still not happy, they're still not satisfied, they're still not content, they still have this uneasiness. So that's a feeling, that's a state of contentment, happiness, confidence in Allah. That's something that people may not have, even if they have the physical assets. So this punishment can actually also be experienced in this world. Okay. So next one, Ajmal, 18.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And the mosque are for Allah alone, so invoke not anyone along with Allah. It has been revealed to me that when the slave of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, stood up, invoked his Lord Allah in prayer to him, the jinn just made around him and dense crowd as if they sticking one over the others in order to listen to the Prophet recitation.
Okay, good. So you see how in the parentheses, it's actually helping you understand who the pronouns are referring to, why they're here, right? So it gives you some understanding. So that's a good thing about the translation. So a very important thing, right? The masajid are for
Only for Allah.
right? So you're not supposed to be invoking people who have died, saints or idols or anything like that. That's a very important principle.
We're worship.
Yes. And so worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and calling him alone is super important. Right? Likewise, now from our perspective, sometimes you're coming to the masjid and if you have a main intention is because to show off to people, to network to people so people can trust you, people can have, you can have more credibility and stuff like that. Those are wrong reasons to come to the masjid. If these things are happening as a side benefit, alhamdulillah, but if that's the intention for someone to come to the masjid, that's something that they need to check, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا وَأَنَّهُ لَمَّا قَامَ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ يَدْعُوهُ كَادُوا يَكُونُونَ عَلَيْهِ لِبَدًا. Salim?
19, right?
Mm-hmm. 20.
20. Say, O Muhammad, I only invoke my Lord and do not associate with him anyone.
Mm-hmm. Next.
Say, indeed, I do not possess for you the power of harm or right direction.
Next.
Say, O Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, none can protect me from Allah's punishment if I were to disobey him, nor shall I find refuge except in him.
Good. So these are, see, that's the thing, this is what I was saying. This is pure tawheed, right? This is showing, Allah is telling us how your mindset should be regarding Allah, regarding people.
So now that's also 21 and
Yeah.
invoke him alone.
So if somebody can actually achieve that mindset, then they would have that contentment that you were talking about, that someone even having $1 million, $1 billion, $10 million in their bank.
And we're not continuing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what he's saying. Number one is that look, he's saying that your mindset should be that I only invoke Allah, right? So the one that I think can truly fulfill my needs is not any human being, but Allah alone, right? And I have to put in my effort. And the next thing is that look, I myself, as a prophet is saying, I don't have the power or absolute power to give anyone any harm. Even the prophet is saying that, right? Or to guide anyone. Right? I can show them the way, but I don't have the power for them to take the way.
Can't read the master message.
That's it. So now if that's the prophet, then what about anybody else? Right? So sometimes we think, okay, do I have the power to guide my family? Do I have the power to guide my children? Do I have the power? No. So my best bet is for me to be able to have straighten my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then now about the people, right? Next verse about the people. That you guys cannot protect me. If all of you want to protect me, want to honor me, and Allah doesn't want to honor me, you can't help me. Right? So if you have a large follower base, a large fan base, and they want to do something for you, but Allah doesn't want to raise you, Allah doesn't want you to put blessing in your life, it can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Likewise, if everybody wants to harm you and Allah doesn't want that to happen, they cannot harm you. So this is a very powerful mindset that a Muslim should have. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَدْعُو رَبِّي وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِهِ أَحَدًا قُلْ إِنِّي لَا أَمْلِكُ لَكُمْ دَرًّا وَلَا رَشَدًا قل إني لن يجيرني من الله أحد ولن أجد من دونه ملتحدا. 23.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mine is but convenience of the truth from Allah and His message of Islam monotheism. And who is ever disobey Allah and His messenger, then verily for him is the fire of hell. He shall dwell therein forever.
Okay, and 24, Salim.
Till when they see that which they are promised, then they will know who it is that is weaker concerning helpers and less important concerning numbers.
Okay. So that, I think we have a few verses remaining, so we can finish that inshallah, right? So go ahead, Ajmal.
25, right?
Yeah.
Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I know not whether the punishment which you are promised is near to whether my Lord will appoint it for its a distant term.
Right?
He is a knower of unseen, and he does not disclose his knowledge of the unseen to anyone.
Okay, so let's just catch up on these things. That look, so after that, so Prophet ﷺ is saying that look, I don't own the ability to guide you, right? What is upon me is to just convey, right? What Allah has sent down on me, okay? And whoever chooses to disobey Allah and His Messenger, that's their choice, but the consequences is that they will be in hellfire forever, okay? And next thing is that right now people have different things, right? So one thing I was saying is, look, today, if I ask you, hey, do you want a balloon or a Mercedes-Benz? What would you choose?
Yeah, Mercedes.
Right? But there was a time in your life, if I were to tell you, would you take a balloon or Mercedes, what would you say? Right? Balloon.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And what's like balloon that?
Yeah, like, a bunch of balloons,
yeah,
right?
okay.
So when you're a child,
Oh, okay.
right? When you're a child, if you go and give a bunch of
okay.
balloons,
I see what you-
right?
Yeah, yeah.
and a key of a Mercedes,
So we're gonna pick up the balloon.
they're gonna pick up the
Yeah.
balloon, right? So there's a different mindset. So now, if you tell the child, no, pick the key. So let's say you're the father, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And child is going for the balloon. No, take the key.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that, right?
True.
Because perceptions are different. Like same thing now, Bitcoin, for example.
Oh.
At some point, I would say, hey, do you want $1,000 or this new digital currency? What would you pick? $1,000, right?
Yeah.
But now, if somebody had the foresight, I'm not talking about haramness of cryptocurrency, but if somebody had the foresight, they would say, oh yeah, I want this, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you would have a choice because of your narrow-sightedness. But someone who is smarter would say, no, let me take the car keys. I don't want the balloon.
True.
Although the child may actually become way more happier than you would be with the Benz key, right? So the point is that happiness and contentment is not related to the physical assets. Second point is that sometimes because of our narrow-sightedness, we pick something that we wouldn't care about in the 5 years. So here, like what the verse is saying, put in context, is that right now they're thinking, oh, we're so powerful and this and that, right? But what Allah is saying that when they see what has been promised to them, whether it be death or after death life or so on and so forth, then they will realize how weak they were. Then they will realize who was weak and who had less support. Clear? Okay, then oh, when will this happen? When will this happen? So look, I don't know. I don't know when death will come. I don't know when day of resurrection will come. So I don't know if it's going to be nearer or later. Allah knows best. This is not something I own. And then I think we read 26 as well, right?
Yeah,
So He is the one who knows the unseen. And He doesn't share the unseen with anyone. And let me recite these verses. إلا بلاغا من الله ورسالاته ومن يعص الله ورسوله فإن له نار جهنم خالدين فيها أبدا حتى إذا رأوا ما يوعدون فسيعلمون من أضعف ناصرا وأقل عددا قل إن أدري أقريب ما توعدون أم يجعل له ربي أمدا عالم الغيب فلا يظهر على غيبه أحدا. Okay, 27. 27.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Except a messenger from mankind whom he has chosen, he informed him Francine as much as he liked. And then he make a band of watching guards and angels to march before him and behind him.
Right, so he knows everything that's unseen, but from that unseen, he reveals some of that to the messengers, what he chooses. But even the messengers are within the protection and guardianship and control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whether he uses angels for them or not, regardless of that, they cannot be harmed and they cannot mislead people as well. So they will convey what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to them. And why? So last verse.
That he may know that they have conveyed the message of their Lord, and he has encompassed whatever is with them, and has enumerated all things in numbers.
So why? So Allah will ensure that they will actually convey the message. So they cannot withhold the message. Right? So this is not a good point, right? Sometimes people say, oh, let us worship Allah in this way and that way. You don't need to, because Allah has completed the deen. Anything that you can do to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any worship, any celebration, Allah has already told you that. So you don't need to start inventing new things, because Allah has said, Allah has made it conveyed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah is fully encompassing of what the prophets do and how the people respond to him and so on and so forth. And everything has been recorded, measured, accounted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to benefit from these things. So what we covered today was about the mindset of contentment. Physical assets are not a necessary thing that Allah loves you. You can be content without physical assets, and you can be very unhappy with a lot of physical assets. Sometimes people may live in delusion that they're very powerful and very strong, but when death comes, then this will be very clarified, if not earlier. The messengers don't know the ghaib. Everybody comes as a servant and dependent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's all-knowing, all-encompassing, and the one who's in charge. Right? And from the things that will help us to have a better life is to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.